How a simple lie turned me into the ideal woman. Lying had never been my strong suit. I was too careful, too anxious to risk deception. And yet, one small lie, an impulsive, harmless untruth, ended up changing my life forever. Before that moment, I was just me. Chris Turner, 24, average in every way. I worked an uninspiring job at a mid-level marketing firm where I blended into the background, just another name on an email thread. My coworkers liked me well enough, but I was never the one they invited out for drinks. I wasn't the guy people turned to when they needed a joke, a strong opinion, or even just a presence that demanded attention. I was soft-spoken, small-framed, and constantly mistaken for something I wasn't. A waiter would glance at me and say, "What can I get for you, ma'am?" before doing a double take. The first few times, I had laughed it off, but as the years passed, those moments left a lingering question in my mind, one I had never dared to answer. I told myself I was fine with my life, that I liked being invisible. No one expected much from me, and in return, I expected little from myself. My apartment was a reflection of that mindset, functional but lifeless. Beige walls, plain furniture, no personal touches beyond a small, locked drawer in my bedroom where I kept things no one knew about. Inside that drawer were secrets. A silk blouse, a delicate pair of stockings, a lipstick in a shade I'd never worn in public. Sometimes, on the loneliest nights, I would take them out, try them on, stare at myself in the mirror, heart pounding. For a fleeting moment, I would feel something, excitement, longing, possibility. But then reality would crash back in, and I'd shove it all away again, pretending those feelings didn't exist. Because what was the point of dreaming about something I could never have? At work, I was just another faceless employee, waiting for time to pass. But that changed the day my boss, Mrs. Calloway, called me into her office. "Chris," she said, rubbing her temples, "we have a situation, and I need your help." That moment, that single conversation, would set everything in motion. I had no idea that by the end of it, I would be stepping into a role that should have felt unnatural, but instead felt like home. I sat stiffly in the chair across from Mrs. Calloway, the head of marketing and a woman who could make grown men shrink with a single glance. She was known for being ruthless, efficient, and allergic to nonsense. So why had she called me in? She sighed, scanning a folder in front of her. "We have a problem, Chris. You know our big client, Belle Elon Cosmetics." I nodded. Everyone knew Belle Elon. They were launching a new campaign, targeting young, modern women. The campaign had been a big deal in the office for weeks. Well, their model for the upcoming social media rollout just dropped out. Mrs. Calloway tapped her manicured fingers against her desk. "We need a replacement, immediately." I blinked. "Okay, but what does that have to do with me?" She exhaled sharply, looking me up and down, and I saw it then, the flicker of realization in her eyes. "She sees it too. Chris," she said, voice measured, "we need someone who can pass as a woman on camera. Someone delicate, androgynous, and with the right look for the brand. And frankly, you might be our only option." My stomach flipped. You want me to pose as a woman?" "It's just for a few photos," she said briskly. "A quick fix. Hair, makeup, styling, it'll be easy." "Easy." My pulse pounded. She had no idea what she was asking. She thought this was a simple favor, a temporary disguise. But to me, it was something else entirely. It was a door opening, a door I had kept locked my entire life. I should have said no. I should have laughed it off, made an excuse, let someone else deal with the crisis. But instead, a quiet, dangerous thought slipped into my mind. What if I said yes? Mrs. Calloway raised an eyebrow. "Well." My mouth was dry, my palms sweating. This was insane, unthinkable. And yet, the words left my lips before I could stop them. I'll do it. A lie. A simple one. I told myself it was just for work, just for one day. But I had no idea that this lie would change everything. The moment I stepped out of Mrs. Calloway's office, I felt like I had made a mistake. What the hell was I thinking? This wasn't me. I was Chris Turner, the quiet guy in the office, the one who stayed in the background. And now I had just agreed to something completely absurd, to pretend to be a woman, on camera, for one of the biggest campaigns our company had ever handled. I spent the rest of the afternoon spiraling, my mind ping-ponging between panic and something else, something I didn't want to name. Excitement. I tried to ignore it. I told myself this was nothing more than a professional obligation, that it wouldn't mean anything. But deep down, I knew better. I had spent years pushing these feelings away, locking them in a drawer, literally and figuratively. Now, someone had given me permission, however unintentionally, to step into something I had only ever dreamed about. And that terrified me. The next morning, I arrived at the Belle Elon studio, my stomach in knots. The place was buzzing with activity, photographers adjusting their lights, assistants rushing around with makeup palettes, racks of designer dresses lining the walls. I felt completely out of place. Then I saw her. Jasmine Reyes, the company's lead stylist. She was effortlessly cool, confident, stylish, with a knowing smirk that made me feel like she could see right through me. She looked me up and down and let out a low whistle. Well, so you're the mystery model. I swallowed hard. Yeah, that's me. Her smirk widened. You're nervous. I nodded. Good, she said, grabbing my wrist. That means you care. Let's get started. She led me to a chair in front of a massive mirror. My reflection stared back at me. Same old Chris, slightly paler than usual, eyes full of doubt. Jasmine stood behind me, hands on her hips. Here's the deal. You're not pretending to be a woman today. You are her. You own this. Got it? I opened my mouth to argue, but she was already moving, pulling my hair back, applying foundation with practiced ease. As she worked, something strange happened. The person in the mirror started to change. With each brush stroke, each swipe of color, the edges of Chris blurred, making way for someone new. My cheekbones seemed sharper, my eyes larger. When she lined them with dark kohl, they became striking, magnetic. My lips, painted a soft rose, looked nothing like my own, but at the same time they did. Jasmine stepped back, admiring her work. Damn, you're beautiful. I let out a nervous laugh, but my chest tightened at her words. Beautiful. I had never thought of myself that way before. Then came the clothes. A fitted blouse, a sleek skirt that hugged my frame just right. Stockings that slid up my legs like silk. The final touch, heels. I hesitated, but Jasmine just smirked. Trust me, you'll love them. I stood, wobbly at first, but within minutes, something clicked. The weight of the heels shifted my posture, forcing me to stand taller, more poised. I caught my reflection again, my heart nearly stopped. I looked real, more real than I ever had before. Jasmine stepped beside me, meeting my gaze in the mirror. Still think this is just for work? My breath hitched. I couldn't answer, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure who I was anymore. Or maybe I was finally starting to figure it out. The first few shots went smoothly, too smoothly. I posed as instructed, my new reflection staring back at me from the glossy screens around the studio. With every click of the camera, I felt an unfamiliar thrill. It was intoxicating, this feeling of being seen, not as Chris, the forgettable office worker, but as someone captivating, someone beautiful. But then came the real test. Okay, the photographer called out. We need some shots outside. More natural lighting. My stomach clenched. Outside. Jasmine must have noticed my hesitation. She placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. Relax. No one's gonna know. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was that I knew. The moment we stepped out of the studio, the air felt different. It wasn't the cool breeze or the bright morning sun, it was the weight of the world watching. People passed by on the street, some barely glancing our way, but a few lingered. Was it curiosity? Suspicion? Amusement? A group of men stood near a cafe across the street. One of them, a tall guy in a leather jacket, gave me a slow, assessing look. He nudged his friend, who smirked. My pulse spiked. Were they laughing at me? Could they tell? Damn, one of them murmured. She's gorgeous. I froze. My brain short-circuited. They didn't know. They saw her. Not Chris, not a fraud, but her. Jasmine nudged me forward. Come on, superstar. Own it. I tried. I really did. But as the photographer directed me into different poses, the weight of it all pressed down on me. What if someone from work saw me? What if this got out? Was I in too deep? I turned too quickly in my heels, nearly twisting my ankle. My stomach dropped as I stumbled. Laughter. It was just a couple of passers-by, chuckling as they walked past, but my confidence shattered. The fear came rushing back. I wasn't her. I was a guy in makeup and heels, playing pretend. I can't do this, I whispered, my throat tight. Jasmine sighed, stepping in front of me. Listen to me, she said, her voice softer than before. That little voice in your head? The one telling you you're not enough? It's a liar. I swallowed hard. But what if? What if nothing? She held my gaze. Look around. No one sees you as anything but exactly what you are. So stop fighting it. I took a shaky breath. Maybe she was right. Maybe the only thing holding me back was me. I straightened my posture, adjusted my skirt, and stepped forward again. This time I didn't stumble. Something changed after that moment. I stopped hesitating. With every click of the camera, every pose I struck, I felt a shift, like I was peeling away layers of doubt, insecurity, and fear. The more I leaned into it, the more natural it felt. No, not just natural, right? Jasmine adjusted the hem of my blouse and stepped back, arms crossed. Now that's what I'm talking about, she murmured, a slow smile spreading across her face. I turned to the mirror, and this time I didn't see Chris at all. I saw her, the woman I had always been too afraid to acknowledge, the one I had buried under years of self-doubt and expectations. She was poised, elegant, confident, and for the first time, I let myself love her. All right, let's do some final shots, the photographer called. Something bold. A few hours ago, the word bold would have terrified me. Now it thrilled me. I stepped onto the set, my chin high, my heels clicking against the floor like a declaration. The dress I wore was a masterpiece, silky, flowing, hugging every curve I didn't even realize I had. My hair cascaded in soft waves, my makeup was flawless, and when I looked straight into the camera, I owned it. The flash went off. Another, and another. The crew murmured in approval. The photographer grinned. Jasmine beamed like a proud sister. I struck another pose, hand on my hip, tilting my head just so. It wasn't just for the camera anymore. It was for me. I wasn't pretending. I was alive. Jasmine clapped as I stepped off the set. Well, damn, she said. You are her. I let out a breathless laugh, my heart pounding with something electric. Yeah, I whispered, realization hitting me like a lightning bolt. I really am. I should have felt terrified. The email sat in my inbox like a ticking time bomb. Hey, Chris. Saw some photos of you online. Is there something you want to tell us? It was from my coworker, David, and attached to it was a link to me. The shoot had been posted. The world knew. They knew. My hands trembled as I hovered over my keyboard. My heart pounded in my ears. A dozen worst-case scenarios crashed through my mind. Whispers in the break room, stifled laughter, my boss calling me into his office with a disappointed look. I could lie, play it off as a joke, say it was some experimental thing I did on a dare. Or I could tell the truth. I took a deep breath, staring at my reflection in the darkened screen. She was still there. The woman I had embraced that day in the studio. The woman I had always been, hiding beneath layers of fear and self-doubt. I had come too far to erase her now. With shaking fingers, I typed my response. Yeah, that's me. And honestly, I've never felt more like myself. I hit send before I could take it back. Seconds passed. Then a minute. Then another. No response. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. Had I made a mistake? Then ping. David, damn. Didn't expect that. You look amazing, though. Respect. I blinked at the screen. Another message popped up. Sarah, you're stunning. Why didn't you tell us? Then another. Jenna, OMG girl, we need to talk fashion. You've been holding out on us. The knot in my stomach loosened. Then it unraveled completely. I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding, pressing a hand to my chest. They weren't laughing. They weren't whispering behind my back. They were accepting me. A weight lifted off my shoulders. I didn't need to hide anymore. For the first time in my life, I was free. Life didn't change overnight, but it did change. At work, I expected whispers, side eyes, maybe even quiet judgment. Instead, I got compliments, encouragement, Even the ones who didn't quite understand still treated me with the same respect as before. Jasmine was right. The only thing holding me back had been me. I started dressing more how I wanted to, not how I thought I had to. Some days I still kept things subtle, easing into it. Other days, I showed up with confidence, wearing soft blouses and tailored skirts, my makeup light but intentional. The first time I walked into the office in heels, my heart pounded. But no one said a word, until Sarah grinned and said, "Love the shoes, babe." And that was that. Outside of work, things felt even more natural. I went out to dinner as her, ran errands as her, lived my life as her. And with every step forward, I realized something. I had never not been her. Jasmine stayed by my side through it all. "Told you," she'd say, smirking whenever I'd send her a selfie in a new outfit. But the biggest change? Me. I carried myself differently. The nervousness that once plagued me had melted away, replaced with something stronger. Confidence, happiness, freedom. One night, as I stood in front of my mirror, dressed in a silk camisole and jeans that fit just right, I traced my fingers along my reflection. I didn't see a mask. I didn't see an illusion. I saw me. And for the first time in my life, I didn't just accept it, I embraced it. We spend so much of our lives trapped by fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of stepping beyond the limits we think define us. But the truth is, those limits are just that, thoughts. The moment we push past them, we realize they were never real to begin with. Becoming the person we're meant to be isn't about changing who we are. It's about embracing what was always there, just waiting to be set free. I used to think happiness was something I had to earn, something I had to mold myself into. But the moment I stopped trying to be what the world expected and started living as me, I found it was there all along, waiting for me to reach out and take it. So if you're standing at the edge, afraid to take that first step, take it. You might just find yourself on the other side.